are rolling. All right. What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we are here with Henri of the Almighty God Dethroned. It is so great to be able to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here, man. We got this epic comeback album, the Judas Paradox, coming out. It's the first album in 4 years since Illuminati, the last God Dethroned album. Was this just sort of like a continuation of Illuminati? Was it sort of like the sequel or the direct follow-up? Or was the Judas Paradox meant to be like a new beginning for God Dethroned?
It's a new beginning. It's a new beginning because we have a new record label. And it's a new beginning because we want every album to be completely different from the one before. The only thing that's a continuation is the topics, the lyrics. That makes it a follow-up to Illuminati, but music-wise, it's a new beginning as well. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I feel like has there always been like with God Dethroned, because when you compare like the Christ Hunt to the very beginning to the Grand Grimoire and moving forward, like every album has its own things that make it stand out, but also has sort of like an underlying armature to kind of like tie them all together. So when you're making an album, are you thinking, okay, we need to do something different, we need to step into uncharted territory and kind of experiment? Or is there something on the back of your mind where we're like, well, let's not abandon everything that we've done in bloody blasphemy or revenus, etc.?
Yeah, well, I want people to hear that it's God Dethroned when they're listening to our new album. But I don't want people to have the feeling that we play songs that we've played before already. We don't like to repeat ourselves, so we try to come up with new things we haven't done before. So that makes it quite a challenge after so many albums, to come up with something fresh, and people recognize immediately that it's us, but they also can tell it's something we haven't done before. So yeah, that's a challenge. I hope I get my point across.
You definitely do, because I mean, again, into the lungs of hell to the lair of the white worm, like it all has these different elements. But I wanted to ask because, like, I love blasphemous music that has pure misanthropy demonstrated throughout it. I love deicide, and I love, Anal Nakrat that really brings in that intensity and all that. But like, is there a way to keep that, like how much, I guess the lack of, for better words, I always ask if we're going to run out of riffs, but I also want to ask if we're always going to run out of things to hate humanity with, in a way.
Yeah, well, I think both are quite a challenge because at a certain point you've written songs about all kinds of topics that deal with, in our case, religion, I still think that religion is something stupid. It's something that people made up and forced upon the world. But at a certain point, there's not much to say about it anymore. So I guess I was lucky to find this topic about Judas, being the scapegoat. But this time taking it around, because in the Bible there's actually two opposing stories about what happened back in the day. And one of the stories is that Jesus could look into the future and knew what was going to happen, and thus making Judas the victim more than the perpetrator of his death, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So that was quite an interesting thing to write a song about. But other than that, it's, I don't know what to write about. So I try to find different topics that relate to God Dethroned, to our past and to the albums we made. But you need to find new topics because otherwise you'll start making the same album over and over again. That's something I really want to avoid.
Do you find that maybe, because in the end we are all products of our environment and our own experiences and all that, has there been times where maybe like a more personal experience? Maybe not even within blasphemy or points of view, but has there ever been a time where maybe your own personal life or your own personal experiences served as subject matter for God Dethroned?
No, not really. I never found it interesting to write about my own personal life and to use it for the band. I want things to be, first of all, fictional or based on historic themes, stuff like that, but never personal. Also, never political. I don't want to do it because we're a band who try to entertain people, and I don't want to use my own life or examples from my own life to do so.
Do you feel like some people would argue that the fact that you have this blasphemistic nature, this anti-religion, not messaging, but this anti-religious subject matter, that people could see this as being a quasi-political statement, no?
I don't know how they would see that as a political statement.
Really? I think people say all the time that religion, like I've heard people say, in order to benefit our society, we need to do away with religion. That almost seems like a very, and then some people say that we need more religion to better the society as well, like vice versa. Isn't that almost two opposing, like, it's almost like two opposing political views, religious views and political views at the same time. I look at, the bullshit of politics today, and it really does almost seem like it's its own holy war in and of itself.
Yeah, it's all a joke. Politics now is a joke, and so is religion. People came up with some stories back in the day. They had a cult, and it became a world religion, and they forced their opinion upon the rest of the world. That doesn't make sense. I'm entitled to have my own opinion about it. I'm entitled to believe in what I want, and I don't have to follow the rules of a group of people who decided that their way is the only way. Mm-hmm. So it's more a joke than a political situation, But even the political situation has become a joke.
Yep.
That's how I feel about it.
It's two opposing sides, neither of them being grounded in reality, arguing of which one is best, and as a result, no solutions come. And therefore, religion or politics are pretty much the same damn thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Because you take I would hate living in a religious society, whether it was in a Christian society or a Muslim society. I would hate living underneath that theocratic religious society. The same where, I would hate living in a full conservative society versus hate living in a full liberal society at the same time. So,
yeah, and I understand that some people go back into their own bubble nowadays and try to shut themselves off from all the information that comes from the outside. Because many people don't even know anymore what's the truth. Because just like political parties, also religion, they all have their own opinion, and they sell it to you as if it's the truth, but you don't know. You can't tell anymore who's telling you the truth and who's trying to influence you so you will do what they want. Yeah. That's something completely different.
And what I find great about God Dethroned is because I feel like a lot of people who do share this point of view with you, they look at that album title, Bloody Blasphemy. They look at, the concept of the Judas Paradox, and they do relate. I hate this religion. It makes the world a sickening place. God Dethroned is my theme music. But I also think that people just see the word Bloody Blasphemy, and they look at that as the same way they look at Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, Obituary, and they just get that it's just metal in and of itself. So do you feel like listeners could really digest your music from multiple angles?
Yes. People can just look at us or listen to our music because they like the music. I don't expect people to take my lyrics seriously. People can just see it as pure entertainment. What I try to do is try to make a story that is biblical. I try to make it more down to earth. I try to I mock it, of course. I do. I've always done that. But in that way, I make the stories more down to earth. And I try to show people that it's just a story and you can look at it any way you want. Mm. Instead of seeing it as a religion, instead of seeing it as something that's above you. I don't think it's like that at all. So if people, even if people are religious, they could still like our music and see the image that we have and see our lyrics as something that's pure entertainment and don't take it seriously. I don't care as long as people enjoy it. I'm not trying to get a message across. I'm just using religious topics as a subject to sing about.
But what the religious topics that you have, like when I look at a title like Under the Sign of the Iron Cross, that like has a very thought-provoking, like I get imagery from looking at that title. Then, you know, a title like Bloody Blasphemy or The World Ablaze, that just sounds metal. Fuck God and fuck the world in itself. But then, you know, with Under the Sign of the Iron Cross, or I would even say a title like The Toxic Touch. What is that toxic touch, if you will? Is it the hand of God? Is it the hand of people trying to impose their beliefs on me? I feel like you are, I call God Dethroned's music the thinker's blasphemy.
Yeah, I guess that's right. You know, I guess there's always, I always try to add some layers to, you know, not only the music, but also to the lyrics and make people think about it. So I try to write in a way that is open for interpretation. You know, if you read my lyrics, you can think this, or you can think completely the other way, because when you read it, it gives you the feeling that I'm going somewhere, but I'm not telling you where I'm going. So your own mind will take you to the place you think it has to be. Does that make sense to you?
Definitely. Definitely. I wanted to ask though, and I'm gonna sound like such like a almost like a mom asking this, but I've always wondered this as an artist who explores darkness and agony and despair all the time. And that is, you know, in the end, this is dark music. This is intense music. There's anger driven in there and despair and intensity, all that. And I've always said that we could sometimes become victimized by our own products sometimes. And I don't care how evil and blasphemous you are. I don't care if you're in Mayhem or Watain or Behemoth. We all sometimes have we sometimes have the desire to be happy, or the desire to, you know, find pleasures in the world around us. Do you find that sometimes when this intensity is the fuel to your fire, it makes the songwriting just as deteriorating as it can be cathartic? Or you could give me the Glenn Benton answer and be like, I never overthought it that much.
Yeah, I do, because, you know, back in the day when I decided to call my band God Dethroned, I forced myself into a certain corner, and I forced myself to write about certain topics. Of course, I go off topic sometimes, like the 3 albums that were albums entirely about World War One, concept albums. You know, like Passchendaele, Under the Sign of the Iron Cross, and The World Ablaze were concept albums about World War One. So I had completely different subjects to write about. But other than that, I'm not gonna write about everyday life when when your band name is God Dethroned. Of course, people also expect certain topics from us.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm a happy guy too. It's not the life that I live every day, you know. I'm not thinking about what type of blasphemous lyrics I can write tomorrow. But I try to find subjects that fit to the image of the band. But at the same time, I go in depth. So I do research, and what I write has some historical value to a certain extent, and I mix it with fiction, or I give my own opinion to it, and that's how I work. And but it doesn't mean that this is my life, and that there's never a happy moment, or I'm not listening to other music at all. It's something I forced myself into back in the day. If I want to change it, I shouldn't change the name of the band, or I should quit and start a new band. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to do that, because I've already built up this, and I want to continue, you know, playing live and people knowing the band already. So I know there's people coming to the show. If I start something new, I will start from scratch, which will take me a long time to build up again. Well, you know what I mean?
No, 100%. And I wanted to ask you this too, because when you make music that isn't about your personal life or your everyday life, because let's be real, nobody is the same person 30, 40 years from now. You're not the same person who you were when you put out The Christ Hunt in 1992. I was -1 when that album came out. So like, you know, we're none of us are the same person. But do you think by not bringing your personal life into it and writing about who you were at that time, that maybe helps the album age better in a way? Because you don't feel like if somebody wants to hear, you know, if you do like a Christ Hunt anniversary tour and revisit that older material, it isn't gonna feel like you're the Henri from 1992. It's still gonna feel very much present because you're not writing about who you were at that particular time.
Oh, that's you know, we did actually play a lot of those songs a few years ago when the album was when the album had its 30th anniversary. And what I thought then was like, oh my God, this is old stuff, you know. It was fun to play, you know, to play all the old songs for the audience. And at the same time, I thought, okay, so this was where we were at that time. And I'm so glad that we moved on from there. So, and lyric-wise, there's nothing wrong with it, but the music felt so dated to me, and I'm glad that the band progressed into what we are today. So I can see it from what it is from 33 years ago, or what was it, 32 years ago?
Yeah.
I can see it for what it is, and I don't want to relate to it too much, because there's so many people who don't even know that album because they weren't even born, like yourself.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm notorious for making people feel old in this in this business. So
I don't feel old. I'm just a little bit older.
Well, to quote the great Lemmy Kilmister, if you think you're too old to rock and roll, you probably are. But
yeah, true. Very true.
But being such a multi-instrumentalist as well, because you express so many different meanings and subject matters, from World War I to sheer blasphemy, but you express yourself with many different forms of instrumentation, being a vocalist, but being a guitarist as well, and, you know, having your previous projects such as To the Gallows or Winter of Sin or Dysentery and whatnot. Do you express a different side of yourself depending on what instrument you're playing? Or do you express a different side of yourself or have a different creative mindset depending on what project you're involved with?
No, I guess it's all interchangeable. I mean, Dysentery was my first band. But if I listen to the demo we made back in the day, you can hear already the blueprint for God Dethroned. You know, for Winter of Sin, for example, I didn't write the music, but I did the vocals. And of course, a lot of people tell me that the band reminds me, or the band reminds them of God Dethroned. Yeah, it's because I'm singing in my typical way, my typical timing, which makes it the Serpent King singing, you know? So I guess whenever I pick up a guitar or write a song, there's a certain way of you know, I make my chord progressions, and it reminds people of me. Like my favorite guitar players from back in the day also had the typical way of writing a song. And it didn't matter if they wrote a song in 1969 or they did that in 1990 or last year. They have their own style that's been there all the time. Same goes for me. So it doesn't matter what I play, doesn't matter when I sing, for which band, it sounds like me. So you can always pick me out if you know my style well enough.
Yeah. I think you have your own signature. I think you've established, like, you've put your own sort of fingerprint or your own sort of stomp on what death metal is. Because, you know, just being brutally honest, and I'm not saying it like it's a bad thing, but death metal in itself, I'm not saying it's formulaic. I just feel like death metal, it has its elements. Once you get those elements, you have a good death metal band, whether it's Cannibal Corpse or whether it's a newer band like Sanguisugabogg. But I think that there are rare moments where there is a death metal musician that puts his own stamp on it that you don't hear in another death metal band. Example, Alexi Laiho of Children of Bodom, may he rest in peace. Nobody in death metal writes guitar solos like that. You take, Obituary, Tampa, Florida death metal, just like everybody else. But how many vocalists in that genre do we hear like John Tardy? I feel like with God Dethroned, your riffing style combined with your vocal style is your own sort of print on the world of death metal that people are going to know that that's immediately you.
Yeah, probably. And of course, certain people are so good or have such a unique style or were there at the right time that everybody knows them and everybody loves them. And the examples you gave, those people are so specific in what they do, and they did it at the right time, and the quality was so high when they started that everybody knows them and everybody loves them. So I guess all the bands that are still around and still tour and put out albums, they all had qualities on a certain level so that people are still following those bands. The ones who didn't have that quality are long gone by now.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you know, for me, it's so hard to say, and actually I don't even want to say it, that I have my own style or my own fingerprint. I think that's up to the people who enjoy our music to say something like that. To me, it feels weird to say that about myself, you know? So I'd rather hear it from somebody who likes our music than to promote myself in that way, to be honest.
I've heard plenty of musicians say the total opposite. Oh yeah, I'm an OG, I invented this, and you could, I won't tell you who, you could just scroll through my channel to find it. But and when it comes to the inspiration to write, do you find that inspiration kind of comes out of the blue in a way? Does that creative energy just strike you? Or being that there is a lot of research involved, such as, reading about World War I or different religious subject matters, that you almost kind of look for the inspiration? You kind of like have a well of creative ideas that you kind of fish into.
Well, the way I work is I usually have something like a topic in mind, something I want to write a song about. Then I get a title in my head, a song title. And then when I have a song title, I get a picture, like when I'm watching a movie. And when I watch a movie, I envision the music that comes along with that movie. And then when that's in my head, I pick up my guitar and start playing. I create music that belongs to the movie that I have in my head. And that's how I write the song. And once the music is there, then I start writing lyrics. And for the lyrics, I do research. But for the music, it's just a natural process. I get an idea in my head according to the steps that I just explained, and it all happens naturally. I don't have to think about it.
That's incredible that it seems like your music is a bridge between like very well thought out, preconceived, meticulous inspiration combined with the urgent, out of nowhere creative, and you kind of let those two moments sort of like collide. That's an interesting way of doing it. I find that other artists I speak to, it's kind of like one or the other.
Yeah, it's just how it works for me. I always have an image in my head. If somebody speaks to me about something that they did or something they've experienced, my mind wanders off, because in my mind, I already see it in front of me. You know, when you tell me what happened to you yesterday somewhere where you live, then I'm already picturing that in my head, that situation when you talk about it. So that's how my mind works for some kind of reason. So the same happens with music. I have a title, I get a picture in my head, and I write music that goes along with that picture that I have in my head.
Do you find
that's how it works? I always did it like that.
Do you find that maybe if you're working on something, though, for a long, extended period of time, it makes it harder to sort of maintain that picture in your head?
No, it doesn't. Once the first idea is there, then the rest will come by itself. It's I can also memorize ideas for a long time. So I have a melody or a guitar riff in my head. And let's say it takes 2 weeks before I pick up my guitar, I still have that idea in my head. Still figure it out, because I don't know what I have to play. I just have to try to get there by playing guitar. But the idea stays in my head for a long time. And when it's gone very quickly, then it wasn't good in the first place.
Well, you could just make yourself sleep better at night saying that too. Oh, if it wasn't meant to be. I feel like when an artist passes away, the first thing that they do is they get put into a tomb of all the ideas that they once had that just faded so quickly. Like remind that.
Probably.
Yep. I call it riff purgatory, or
yeah.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for such an awesome conversation. And most of all, thank you just for giving us another fantastic God Dethroned album and continuing to give us great new music that is much needed in these rather angry, driven times. Is there just anything else with God Dethroned that you would like to promote with the release of the Judas Paradox? Like, could we be expecting maybe a North American tour soon, please?
Yeah, we are working on it. We should have been touring the US already in February this year. But it didn't happen because the headlining band didn't have the visas ready. So the tour was canceled, and with that, our tour was falling apart, unfortunately, because I love touring the US. Now we are looking at early next year. So it's still in the works. We need a bigger band to go on tour with because we can't do it on our own. But yeah, it looks like we should be there finally again early next year. That's the plan. And looking forward to it, actually.
We will be looking forward to having you, especially with this new album. It's just an absolute, it is an 11-track killing spree, this album, and I can't wait for the rest of the world to hear it. Definitely.
Same.
Yeah.
Same for me, man.
Yeah. But thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. We are here with God Dethroned, the Judas Paradox. Be sure to pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Alex.